Hi everyone, this is Preet, and this video will hopefully make the Google motion charts a little bit easier to understand and play with because they're very powerful and they show a lot of data. So let's get started. A couple of things to notice, first of all, is that there is an X and Y axis. Now on the X axis, you can change what data shows up here. So in this case, we have the growth of $1. This is going to show you the growth of $1 in various different asset classes. These asset classes here, you can see we've got the EAFE, the TSX Gold Diversified Portfolio, 3-month T-bills, and long Canadian bonds. These are also listed here in this box. We can show, so again, $1 invest in each of these different asset classes or the portfolio over various periods of time, and actually it'll be from 1970 to 2011, so that's 42 years of data. We can also graph the annual return. Of course, when you've got the same X and Y data, you're always going to be basically seeing the data move on a plane. So when you press play, the data gets visualized. So over time, these would have been the annual returns of these various different portfolios. So setting the X and Y axis to the same thing isn't going to tell you a lot. So why don't we try, let's go with time. And we'll take a look at annual return, but with all the data points being blue, that kind of makes it hard to decipher which one's doing what. So on the right here, we can change these options as well. So we can say instead of the same color, we can use unique colors. So now each asset class has got its own color. Now if you select one of these check boxes, we can take a look at one particular asset class over time. Let's back this up to the start and start it over again. So now we see gold, and we're looking at the annual return over these 42 different years. So you can see gold is very volatile, especially in the 70s, calmed down a little bit in the 80s and 90s, and ended up here. So again, these are the range of returns for 42 years. Now you can have multiple data points going at the same time, so you can put the trails here, or you can remove them. So the trails will show you the history and keep it on the chart as everything else is moving. What else can you do? You can change, there's another variable you can change here, and this is the size. So instead of the size just being static, you can have the size based on the annual return. So the higher up on the graph, the higher up the annual return is, the bigger the data point will look. Or you can have it as the growth of $1. So this would simulate the size of a portfolio, for example, if you had invested $1. So if we start that over again, you can see that the data points all start as small bubbles, but then they get bigger or smaller depending on basically their annual rates of return. Now, what else can we do? We can take a look at the growth of $1 instead of the annual return, and this shows us a different way of looking at the data here. So in this particular case, you can see that gold did pretty well, but then once you had some negative returns when the portfolio was bigger, it had some precipitous drops. If, for example, we take a look at a diversified portfolio versus gold, that's always a popular comparison, I suppose. What we'll see is the benefits of a diversified portfolio. So again, it's kind of boring, but slow and steady seems to win the race over time. And you can see that the size of that portfolio with a lump sum investment is higher with gold, with a diversified portfolio than it was for gold over that 42-year time span. Obviously, shorter periods of time, you might have a different story, but over the long term, diversification seems to work. So I encourage you to play with all these variables that you can adjust, and take a look at the different ways you can visualize the data. Now, once you've done that, the other thing you should note is that there are different charts that you can actually look at. And actually, one more thing I'll show you is that on the annual return, let's change this to time by growth of $1, and then I'm going to change the the color to be the annual return. So this now overlays a heat map onto the portfolios or the asset classes to show you three things. Now we're looking at time. We're also looking at the growth of $1. So the higher this is up on the chart, the better. The size is the growth of $1. So that sort of coincides with how high it is on the chart. But then the color will give you the annual return for that year. So you can see in this particular case, the return was very high. So let's take a look at that data again. So now the colors are changing for the individual asset classes depending on the annual return. So again, there's many, many different ways you can visualize this data. So this is your bubble motion chart. We can actually switch this to one of two other different types of charts. Here we have a column chart. So again, on the x-axis, how do you want these ordered? Is it on growth of $1 and a return alphabetical? Well, if you set it to alphabetical, these columns aren't going to move around on each other. They're going to stay where it is. So 3-month T-bills in this particular case is always going to be here. Now, yeah, let's take a look at growth of $1. So from 1970, now what you'll see is the growth of $1. So the height of these columns represents the overall value of the portfolio had you just invested $1 and left it there. And you can see some of them are doing really well, and they're contracting and expanding, and they're quite volatile, whereas the diversified portfolio almost seems to have only gone up steadily over time. And again, the color in this particular case was set to annual return, but you could change it to just being unique colors, so they're always the same. And again, just play with it so you can change these settings. Sorry, the y-axis. You can change the x-axis. You can select and deselect which ones are highlighted. You can have trails on them in the motion chart. You don't have trails in the column chart. And then the last one you can look at isn't that interactive. It's just a line chart. But you could take a look at values of, for example, the growth of $1 at various points in time a little bit more easily with this chart. So there you have it. There's 3 different charts, and in some of them you have up to 5 dimensions of data that you can tweak with. So have some fun with it, and let us know in the comment section if you enjoyed it. Thanks.